Hello. So it feels like quite a long time since we've had an opportunity to, or I've had an opportunity to talk to y'all. Um, I hope everybody's holding up okay. Um, this kind of sucks. Um, but we got to do the right thing, and hopefully everybody is. Um, this week, it's actually kind of a nice week to get ourselves started with this because it's relatively lighter sort of stuff. Well, not light in terms of topically, but not the hardest of the topics that we'll cover throughout the rest of the semester. And it's a nice point of departure that we had from the first half of the semester to second half of the semester. So there are some advantages, or at least some pieces that make this not entirely awful. But I was having a lot of fun in class with y'all, so I'm kind of bummed out. So, nevertheless, um, looking over our discussion questions, and what we tended to see were a lot of questions surrounding both the Linshad article on Cybus, as well as some general ethical questions, those topics we covered. Um, there's this interesting thing. So, you have in the paper, in the questions about the Cybus paper, you have kind of this juxtaposition. So you have a number of questions saying, "Oh my goodness, this is so effective. Why don't we use this all the time?" Okay, might be a little bit of an exaggeration on the viewpoint, but oftentimes there is treatment refractory sort of self-injurious behavior. So behavior that, despite your best attempts, is very very difficult to treat. Um, and then there's a whole other side of the coin where there are folks who are saying, well, how could this ever be considered ethical? Okay. I could, that one's an easier question for me to answer than the other one. I spent years working on a hospital unit for individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities with very severe issues of problematic behavior. Okay. We did well. Okay. We did well with treating them. Punishment was generally considered a last resort, and actually, we had something of a culture at the hospital, whereas you're kind of you're kind of you were pretty proud when you could manage to treat these behaviors without having to go down the punishment road. Um, I'm actually very proud to say I say probably 80% of my cases we didn't. And these were severe cases. However, I saw cases where, despite the most clever, best minds that I'd known in clinical behavior analysis working on the cases, they couldn't figure out a way to either get treatment rates down or develop treatments that were um, acceptable in other ways. So, um, oftentimes, on some of the hardest cases, they may end up having to go to punishment, but then you're looking at these restraint sort of punishments, and oftentimes, you'd have a lot of people getting hurt. There's much greater risk of individuals getting hurt when you have to restrain people as punishment. Um, in fact, I had a patient there that I think she put about 8 people in the hospital. Um, so there are times where I looked and I went, oh, I understand why people might, as a very last resort, need this treatment option. Then there's the other side of this coin. Okay, and the other side of this coin is it's just straight up icky. Okay, it's just straight up icky to think about people shocking children. Okay, um, these children typically, so the children evaluated in this study were children with very, very severe problematic behavior. And shock was probably much less painful than what they were experiencing otherwise. However, it's icky. It just sounds awful, okay? And this is, the shock stuff is not stuff that happens very much in behavior analysis. In fact, there's really There's one major treatment facility that tends to use it pretty frequently, Judge Rothberg Center in Massachusetts. And they take a lot of flack. Okay, they have had a lot of legal battles over their use of these treatments, not because they're ineffective, but because there's always concern with abuse, and it just sounds out and out bad. Doesn't help that they kind of are a little blasé about it, and they kind of push people towards being less willing to support them. But I can remember going to our national conference and seeing folks outside, primarily picketing the fact that these guys were presenting research at our conference. So those are two sides of that coin here. But those two sides of the coin actually represent some of the balance that is necessary, okay? So there's questions about this idea of weighing risk, okay? So in exposing individuals to undue stress, and there's that real weirdness there in that we don't define what undue stress is. And what it is it's a cost-benefit sort of thing, okay? So it is a little bit stressful to receive an electrical shock. It sucks, okay? However, in these cases, what people are weighing is the ability to get a hold of their behavior and decrease these rates of problematic behavior that are these rates of self-interest behavior, which are very dangerous to the individual, and weighing that against the ickiness of the treatment, okay? And there's a lot of choices in research where you have to go and you have to make a decision. Hey, do the costs outweigh the benefit? Rather outweigh the benefits? And if they do, if the costs, and by costs I mean all the side effects, all the concerns, if those outweigh the benefits, it's a non-starter. Okay. One would ask how this sort of stuff would be approved. Okay. Well, it's actually a relatively straightforward process. You're doing the tutorial on human subjects, but what you got to remember is, you have a researcher coming up with this idea of doing it, okay? And they have to weigh their costs and benefits. But if it's a research study, they have to weigh their costs and benefits, but then they have to send it out to the IRB, Institutional Review Board, and they have to weigh the costs and the benefits. And everybody has to agree that we're going to gain more than it's costing to make it worthwhile. So these are the reasons that people can do these studies. And in fact, actually, I'm not going to say it would be nice if we could get people doing more punishment research. However, we don't know very much about it. And there's an extent to which it would be really, really great if we could understand punishment just a little bit better, just well enough to be able to be more effective using it as treatment. Okay, I'm moving this around so I can get another peek at some of the questions that we have here. We did have a number of questions about the paper, and here's the tough part, so the paper is a major part of the class. However, second half of class is when we work on the paper more. I'm going to tell you we're going to be fair, okay? But I'm also going to tell you that in the framework that we're operating from, this online framework, and we've taught this online solely, including the paper, using these same lectures that we're using. But you guys are kind of moving from a spot where you're believing that you're going to receive a lot of support to move forward on the paper, and then all of a sudden, somewhat pulled out from underneath you. Okay, here's what I want. Okay, and this is not an assignment, but this is a plea to anybody who is interested in knowing more about the paper or has questions about the paper. Okay, first round, what I want to do is I want everybody before next week, send me any specific questions you have about the paper. Okay, and so when I do my next clarification lecture, I will also cover all the specific questions about the paper. Okay, after that point. Okay, so after you guys have asked these questions, And if you're still feeling a little bit lost with the woods on this, reach out, okay? Email, set up a Skype meeting with either myself or Tad. We can find some time. We can chat this stuff through. This is actually, unfortunate. This is actually the most fun part of the class, is helping you guys form these papers in through the end. So give us a chance, okay? First, if there's just general specific questions, I'll answer those next week. But if it's questions about the viability of your question, don't wait until after I've given the lecture. Go ahead and reach out now. We'll set up a meeting. I got different coworkers these days. However, I can find time. Tad can find time. We can find a way to make sure that you get the support that you need for your question. Okay. And if you wonder whether this is going to be what you're doing for your paper is going to be okay, reach out. Normally we can do this, in 2-minute meetings after class and kind of walk through these things and slowly work our way through it. But this is a different world right now. Okay, it's only right now. It's not going to last forever. But we got to make it through the semester, and we got to make it through this being successful. Okay. So I wanted to touch base on that. Another question we had was issues about deception in research. Okay, is it okay to lie to people? Okay, and the reality is sometimes. Okay, it's another cost-benefit thing. So what do you get out of lying to the people? How much harm can it do them? Okay, so for example, years ago I did a study wherein we were having people kind of do a behavioral decision-making task. And it was a task where they were going to do badly and they were going to end up losing money in it rather than gaining money. But we told them from the very beginning, hey, you're going to walk out with the earnings that you had from this. Okay, everybody ended up with negative earnings. Okay, and what we did was we kind of knew that this was going to happen, and so we got permission from the IRB that at the end of the study, we came to them and we debriefed them and we said, hey, look, I know I said that we're gonna give you your earnings, but this isn't working out well for you, man. Okay, so instead, we're gonna give you $100. Okay, just don't tell anybody about it. Okay. And nobody complained. In fact, actually, they walked off not a bad payment for about an hour and a half's worth of their work. Of note, I can't do that now. So if I volunteer for one of my studies, we don't pay that much. But it was deception. We lied to them. We made them think the whole time they were making their choices that this was the actual money they were going to receive. It wasn't until afterwards that we let them know that it was different. How does IRB decide if that's acceptable? The same way they do everything, is they weigh the costs and the benefits. Okay, and by weighing the costs and the benefits, eventually they can come to a decision whether something's okay. I saw probably about 3 or 4 questions about the long-term effects of SIBUS, and if you look in the paper there, the paper mentions some people they're working on fading this stuff out, so there are questions about fading it out. And there's only 1 or 2 papers after this one. This one was just a really nice piece. Only a couple papers after this one that have really looked at SIBUS at all. And so they don't necessarily know the long-term effects. But I can tell you, looking at the rates of problematic behavior, if you move towards people receiving an occasional shock, instead of the rates of problematic self-injurious behavior they're engaging in, I'm guessing the long-term benefits are pretty nice. Okay, keep in mind in terms of both fading as well as long-term effects. The neat thing about punishment is that, to a certain extent, if the behavior fades out, the punisher fades out. Okay, so if you have a punishment procedure in effect, and you stop engaging in the punished behavior, you no longer experience the punisher. Okay, so you no longer end up experiencing shock. So if every time you hit yourself on the head, you receive a shock, if you stop hitting yourself on the head, the shock is gone. Okay, and so it naturally fades its way out. And when you look at it, the folks in these studies didn't actually take that many shocks because of this. They were able to avoid receiving shocks just by not engaging in the behavior. Okay. Looking to make sure there's any major pieces that I'm not covering here. So you're adjusting to a new world in terms of questions. So I had a discussion question oriented around the mechanics of taking these tests. We've administered this online and administered similar classes with the same parameters of testing, so on and so forth. However, you guys didn't sign up for an online class. And sometimes people on online classes get used to these parameters, and so it doesn't bother them much. If things pop up, okay, if it becomes so, if there are aspects about the interface that are problematic to us, to you, reach out to us, email us. We're going to work with you on stuff, okay? This is, we're all going to get through this together, and I look forward to our coming out the end of this being awfully happy. I'm going to end here, okay? But what I'm going to end here with is a plea to you, okay? Take care of yourself. Do everything you can to keep yourself happy, healthy, so on and so forth. If this class is causing you stress, give us an opportunity to help you with it, okay? If there's any reason that you need to talk to us about this class, give us an opportunity. That's what we're here for, okay? We're going to get you through this. You're going to do fine. And you know, 6 months from now, this will just be a bad memory, okay? We'll just be past us, okay? But take care of yourself, and if you need help, let us know. Thank you.